In this video, we're going to go over what I consider the best polishers for beginners. And this is a video that actually goes along with an article I wrote by the same title, Best Polishers for Videos. So if you forget something in this video and you just like to read through the text, you can always find that on the Dr. Beasley's blog. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I've been detailing cars all my life. I've been an instructor in the industry for going on 30 years. I'm the only detailer in this industry that has published 6 how-to books and hosted 2 TV shows on the topic of car detailing and specifically polishing paint or doing what we call paint correction. So I feel a tick qualified to share with you at least my opinion on what I think are some of the best polishers on the market today if you're brand new to machine polishing out the paint on your own car, or as we like to call it, paint correction. Now, I'm going to show every tool here is under $200, okay? I wanted to keep the price point low, so if you're a beginner and you get into this and you find you don't like it, you won't have a lot of money tied up into tools, because some of the tools in our industry go anywhere from $500, $600, $700, $800. And if you buy one of those tools and then find out you don't really like this type of work, then you'll have to resell the tool and you'll probably lose some money. So we'll just keep this under $200. Now, the tools I have here also are from either established companies or they've been on the market from a discount store like Harbor Freight for some length of time, so they do have a history of performance and reliability. I'm going to start with the least expensive tools, and I'm going to work my way up to the more expensive but still under $200 tools for a category that we call free spinning random orbital polishers. I do have one tool here that's what's called a gear-driven orbital polisher. And just to start off with, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So when I talk about a free spinning tool, you will understand. Okay, this is a Porter cable. And I'm going to have the camera person zoom in. I want to show you something here. The way this is a free spinning random orbital polisher, and the way this works and all these other tools except for this one work is the same way. It has what's called a free floating spindle assembly. And as you see, I can take and just spin this with my finger. It's not gear driven. Okay, it has a counterweight, and when you turn this thing on, what happens is the counterweight builds up inertia and it maintains the rotation of the spindle. But because it's not gear driven, if you hold the polisher crooked, which means you're holding the pad crooked and put too much pressure on one side of the pad, it will completely stall out. That's kind of a safety feature because it prevents you from burning through the paint. But that's how a free spinning random orbital polisher works. And the word random means because it's not a defined orbit stroke, because it's gear driven, sometimes it may be 4, if it's an 8mm tool like this, sometimes the orbit stroke might be 4, but sometimes it might be 6, sometimes it might be 8. It's going to be random because there's no fixed gear defining the stroke of the orbit. But that is a free spinning random orbital polisher. Now, this is a Flex 3401, affectionately known as the Beast. And as you can see, this has an inner gear ring. It's also got a free spinning spindle assembly here, but the backing plate has a matching inner gear. So this is the outer gear, here's the inner gear. And when you put this together and they mesh and you turn it on, because of the gears, this is an 8mm gear-driven orbital polisher. It's an exact or defined orbit stroke. It's always going to make the pad go in a circle and then a circle inside that circle, and that circle will always be 8mm in orbit diameter. So that's how these tools work, and that's why I took the backing plates off, just to kind of show you. I'll go ahead and turn this one on too so you can see how it operates. Okay, and of course, to use this, you put the backing plates back on the tools. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about 2 different types of tools, entry-level tools, but one set is called a free spinning random orbital, and then over here, this Hercules is a gear-driven orbital. The word random is no longer included when you describe it because there's no randomness to it. Okay, so starting out with the least expensive tool that you can purchase, this is the Harbor Freight BAUER, and they call this a 6-inch DA. And the reason they call it a 6-inch DA, and to me this is mislabeling the tool, is because it has a 6-inch diameter backing plate. Has nothing to do with the action of the tool. So it really should be named the BAUER 8mm DA polisher, because this is an 8mm random orbit stroke. Now, when I talk about 8mm orbit stroke, or what they call a short stroke polisher, I'm going to turn this on. We're going to zoom in, and I want you to take a look at this. There's two perimeters. Okay, I'll hold it right here. Can you zoom in on this? There is an outer perimeter, and there's an inner perimeter, and that space right there is 8mm. So that's what it means when you talk about the orbit stroke length. It's the diameter of the orbit stroke. And you can see that by just kind of turning the pad on and holding it there and looking at the two different perimeters there. This is actually a copy of a very popular tool called the Porter Cable 7424XP. And I'll talk about the differences. But at $69, or just call it $70, this is a very capable tool. It actually has more power than the Porter Cable. And it's lightweight, compact in size, and it's fairly easy to use for anybody that's brand new to doing machine paint correction. Let me throw a little bit of product on here. Let me let you see it in action. This is some Dr. Beasley's NSP45. And like any polisher, whenever you use this, put the cord over your shoulder. The on-off switch is right up here on the side. You just roll it forward. The variable speed dial is all the way in the back, so after you turn it on and spread your product out, you can bring the speed up to whatever you're comfortable with. Usually, if you're removing swirls and scratches, you're going to be in the 4, 5, or 6 speed setting. That's 6. So here's the one, as I just take and kind of spread this product out. And once I got it spread out to the area I'm going to buff, I would bring the speed up. I'll bring it up to the 4. You'd want to put all the pressure right here, not here. If you put it back here, you're going to buff crooked. This pad's in the air. And then you would just make slow, overlapping, what are called section passes. Going front to back, then side to side. And that's pretty much how this tool operates. Now, one tip I always have for anybody using a free spinning tool is you want to take a black Sharpie marker, or if the backing plate, for example, here on this tool here is black, a silver or gold or white Sharpie marker, and you want to take and put some marks on the backing plate, and you can even put some marks on the pad if you like, okay? And I'll show you what this is going to do. And this is important because this is one of the key elements about a free spinning random orbital polisher, is because it's free spinning and you can stop the pad from rotation, you're not going to be able to get the swirls and scratches out. So you need to maintain pad rotation for the most time efficient and effective defect removal. Now, without those marks, when I turn this tool on, if I were to look down on it, all I would see is a yellow blur, and because this pad is a whitish color, I'd see a white blur. By adding the marks, go ahead and zoom in, it makes it very easy for my eyes to see if the pad is rotating or if it's just stalling out and there is no rotation. And if I ever see where it's not rotating, then I want to either adjust how I'm holding the tool so the pad is flat to the surface, or perhaps bring the speed up, or perhaps if the pad has become wet with product, wet pads don't rotate very well, it might be time to switch to a clean, dry pad. But that is how this tool operates. Like I said, it has a lot more power than the Porter Cable. And bang for buck, for $70, you really can't go wrong with a tool like this. And not only can you use this for paint correction, I use tools like this in my classes to show people how to do machine sanding on both boats and cars. Anyway, so that's the BAUER 6-inch DA. And $70, a great entry-level tool. If you decide you don't like detailing, you're not out a lot of money, you can always put it up on Craigslist and sell it. Okay, now this tool right here is not technically something I wanted to include in the review, but if you go down to Harbor Freight to buy the BAUER, if you look around, you're going to see this, and I want to caution you to not purchase this if you're new to machine polishing. So what this is this is a 20mm. So this is 8mm, and let me show you what a 20mm orbit stroke looks like. Okay, see that pattern there? You got the outer perimeter and the inner perimeter, and that space there is 20 millimeters. So it's what's called a long stroke orbital polisher. Now the benefit to a long stroke is, in theory, it's going to move the abrasives over the paint in a larger pattern, and it's going to remove defects faster, and that's true. However, the downside is when you go to a long stroke polisher, which usually means you're also using a bigger pad. The outer edge of the pad has leverage over the rotating spindle, and it causes the pad to stall out. Okay, so if you're a newbie, you really don't want to be trying to perfect your technique for maintaining pad rotation with a large stroke, when what you should be doing is learning how to maintain pad rotation with the short stroke. So I wanted to bring this up here to show it, because you'll see it and you'll wonder why Mike Phillips didn't recommend this over this, but this is a much easier tool to learn how to use and master. That's two things. Okay, so next we've got the Porter cable. Now, this tool has actually been borrowed from the wood sanding industry. This is a wood sander. You can actually get in a vacuum attachment. You can use interface pads and sanding discs that have holes in it, vacuums the sawdust, the wood dust up as you're using it. But back in the 1980s, my good friends at McGuire's and Griot's Garage, they discovered this tool, and they found out that in the same way that this hook and loop backing plate, you can attach a sanding disc and sand wood with it. You could also attach a buffing pad, and unlike all the other DA dual action wood sanders, this one will maintain pad rotation, okay? And that's really the key with any of these free spinning tools. You've got to keep that pad rotating and oscillating in order for the pad to work the abrasives over the paint and level the paint, which makes the swirls, scratches, water spots, and oxidation visually disappear to us. So let me just go ahead and show you this tool. The problem with this tool is, out of all the tools up here, this is definitely the weakest tool. So if you're looking for something that doesn't have a lot of power, just to be safe, this would be a good choice. It does come in, suggested retail I think is $149. I've seen it a lot of places for $129 and $139, and I've also seen it online for $100. So you can get it relatively inexpensive, but just keep in mind, comparing this tool to this tool, this has a lot more power, costs less money, does the same job. But here we go. So I'll just use this to spread my product out again. And then in the deep slowing world, after you get your product spread out, you want to bring the speed up, press down a little bit, and then just run that polisher slowly over the paint, using the crosshatch pattern and overlapping your passes. But that way, I wanted you to be able to see and hear this tool in action as you're watching this video. And that way you can hear the noise level. And as far as vibration goes, if I were to use both of these, I'll put this one on the 5 setting. I'm going to put this one on the 5 setting. We'll run them at the same time. It's pretty easy to tell. This has a lot more power. It maintains pad rotation much better. It also is just a tick noisier and a tick more vibration. And one of the hacks that people often do to this Harbor Freight 6-inch DA is they take the assembly apart up here, they remove the factory grease and they put in a premium lithium grease, and that'll quiet it down and also smooth it out just a little bit. Okay, so those are the two most entry-level polishers probably on the market. They're exactly the same concept. They are 8mm free spinning random orbital polishers. Okay, the next polisher I have here is we're going to step up. This one comes in, I believe it's right around $169. I could be wrong, reference my article on this, but this is the Griot's Garage G9. Now, the 9 stands for 9mm orbit stroke length. Let me turn it on, and again, watch the two different perimeters. Okay, so here's the outer perimeter, here's the inner perimeter. Very, very small, just like the Porter cable and the Harbor Freight 6-inch DA. And to me, this is actually a really great entry-level tool because it's a very high-quality tool. I have good friends at Griots. I know the people that were behind the design and the engineering of this tool. They spared no expense. You get a high-quality tool at an entry-level price, and they maintain that short orbit stroke length. Now, Griots does offer a tool like this with a 15 and a 21, but again, if you're new to this, it's a lot easier to maintain good pad rotation with the short stroke polisher than it is with the long stroke polisher. And you really need to become an expert at maintaining pad rotation in order to remove the swirls, scratches, water spots, and oxidation in a timely manner. Unlike the Harbor Freight and the Porter cable, this has what they call a platypus handle out front. It's very ergonomic. It has these ergonomic rubber grips throughout to make it easy to hold. Because remember, if you're buffing out a car, you'll probably be doing this for hours. You want something that's easy to grip and hold on to as you're buffing with it. All kinds of little features like what they call a tool rest. So you can lay this upside down and it won't tip over like this one tips over. It doesn't have a tool rest. It has a variable speed dial that's on both sides, so if you're left-handed or right-handed, it's very easy to adjust on the fly. It has a real nice variable speed trigger, nice locking mechanism. It has vents here to keep dust from getting into where the motor is, and these are called ports for replacing the brushes should they wear out. You can also get this I think comes from the factory with a 5-inch backing plate. If you wanted to get a 6-inch, you could add a different backing plate and use different pads. But really for tools like this, you don't want to go too much bigger than what's already on there. Actually, this is a 6-inch backing plate. You could get a 5-inch and actually get better pad rotation with a smaller pad just because you've got less surface area that the tool is trying to maintain pad rotation. So that's the Griot's Garage. Let me go ahead and just show you this thing in action so you can hear it and see it, and I'll tell you what the vibration is like. So again, 3 P-size drops of the NSP45. I have this down to the 3 to spread my product out. Now that the product's spread out, I'm going to bring the speed up to the 5 setting. And the first thing I can tell you about this tool is very smooth. It's very smooth, and it really does a good job of maintaining pad rotation as long as you keep that pad flat. Can you zoom in on this? I'm going to tilt the polisher, and what happens when you see me tilt the polisher is you're going to see the pad rotation stall out. Let me go ahead, and I'll do this first without a mark so you can look at it. Okay, and I'll stall it out. Okay, now let me put a few marks on this pad, and then I think you can easily see what I'm talking about. The Griot's Garage backing plates are black, and they do have a red band on them to help your eyes to see pad rotation, but I just find it simpler just to put a Sharpie marker on there. Now watch this in. Okay, see the awesome pad rotation? Now watch what happens if I tilt it. See how it slows down? What you want is this, you don't want this. So that's why it's real important to understand the concept of maintaining pad rotation. But out of the 2 tools here, the BAUER 6-inch and the Porter Cable, this is definitely much smoother and more powerful. So that is the Griot's Garage G9. Now the next tool I have here is not a tool I'd recommend for your first tool or your primary tool. This is the G8. So it's the cousin of the G9, and obviously it's smaller, lighter, more compact in size, and it turns and churns a 3-inch backing plate, and you can get an optional 2-inch backing plate for this also. And what that comes in real handy is when anytime you're working on thin panels like this 1965, I can show you up here. This 1965 Oldsmobile 442 has a thin panel right up here by the fresh air grill. I'll just show you where you would use a tool like this. Okay, can you bring the camera right over here? So we got a fresh air grill, we got this rectangular piece here, but we got this big chunk of paint right here that I would need to polish out. So this tool fits that perfectly. You can also use this to do things like A-pillars. And this small panel here, and this small panel here. So it's really, it's not the tool that you want to buff out an entire car. It'd be kind of ridiculous. You could do it. You could buff out the entire hood with a tool like this. It just would take longer. So that's why I don't recommend this as your primary tool for doing all the major paint correction, but as an add-on once you have your primary tool for working thin panels, intricate spaces, or different components, like a side mirror would be a component. And here's the thin panel. So this is the top of the fender. This is about 4 or 5 inches in diameter. And one of the things when you're detailing cars is you never really want to buff on the edge or a raised body line. So that's where if you have a large pad, you can't really buff those sections out without risking burning through these areas, the edges and the high points. But with a small pad, you can get right in there and safely buff out without getting on the edge or the raised body line. Let me just go ahead and run this. It's so easy to operate, by the way. It's easy to do this one-handed, but you should always have a firm grip on your polishers. Very low vibration. Part of the reason for that is just because it's got a smaller counterweight and it's rotating and oscillating a smaller pad. So that is the G8. So this would actually be a great combination to get, or this added to either one of these two over here. Okay, so those are what are called free spinning random orbital polishers. Another good way to show you free spinning is, look, I can just take my hand and I can spin that pad. I can spin all these. That's what I mean by free spinning. Here's the port cable, free spinning. Here's the BAUER 20 millimeter, free spinning. And of course, here is the BAUER, what they call a 6-inch DA, but it's an 8 millimeter free spinning random orbital polisher, free spinning. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you another tool. And I'm gonna go ahead and show this to you because some people, even though you're brand new, you may want a tool that actually has a lot of power and you're willing to invest the time to learn how to become very good with it. So I wanna show you the original first. This is my favorite tool. This is the Flex 3401, also known as the Beast. This is a 8 millimeter gear-driven orbital polisher. So I showed you the gears over here, the gears on the inside of the head and also the gears on the backing plate. Okay, so this is a gear-driven orbital polisher. A lot of people refer to it as a forced rotation because you're just gonna get no pad stalling. And let me show you exactly what I mean by that. Let me go ahead and borrow this pad. If I put this on the Beast, and I go to spin it, it don't spin. See that? It's not free spinning. So it's a gear-driven orbital. And what that means is this got a lot of power. So let me set this aside because this ranges between $500 and $600, okay? It is an amazing tool. Recently, Harbor Freight knocked it off. This is the Hercules Forced Rotation Dual Action Polisher. So it's technically not correct to call it the Hercules because they also make the Hercules drill, the Hercules power saw, the Hercules impact wrench. It's a brand, like Flex is a brand, like Griots is a brand. So what they do call it though is they call it the Hercules Forced Rotation Dual Action Polisher. Now this is 8 millimeter. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. I want you to look at the orbit stroke. Okay, very small, just like the Porter cable, just like the Harbor Freight 6-inch DA. Here, I'll turn it on, I'll show you. Very small orbit stroke. Okay. Okay, but because it's got a lot of power, watch this. No matter how hard I push on this or if I tilt it, I cannot stop that pad from rotating or oscillating. That's a lot of power. You don't have to mark the backing plate or the pad to see if it's rotating. It's gonna rotate no matter what. And to me, one of the things I like about a tool like this is because there's no pad stalling, I can typically buff out a car faster because I can tackle any shape of panel and the pad's gonna rotate no matter what. When you get into curved panels, either convex or concave with the free spinning tool, oftentimes that pad will start to stall out because you have different pressure on different areas of the pads and it just stalls the reciprocating components out. Not so with the gear-driven orbital. This thing is a pretty good copy of the Beast. And I used this to buff out about a $100,000 car. It was a 1959 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud with a factory or a fresh custom paint job. And I cut that with the wool pad on rotary and I come back and did the polishing work with this and it tackled the whole thing. These come in, our normal retail is $120 and you can actually get them on sale at $100. So it's still under $200, but I just want to make sure you understand this is a different type of animal than these free spinning tools. This is a gear-driven polisher. And then let me go ahead and just use it so you can see it in operation and hear it. And I'll tell you what I think of the vibration. It also comes with a 20-foot long or 25-foot long cord, which is kind of nice. It's a hassle when you go to put it away, but when you go to plug in, a lot of times you don't even need an extension cord. Okay, Very low vibrations, very smooth. It has a ton of power. And now I want to show you something else that's nice about a gear-driven tool. So before I was showing you the Griots Garage G8, and that's for getting into small panels. And the thing is, if you take one of the larger tools and you try to tilt it on edge and buff out these thin panels, the pad will just stall out and you can't get anything done. But with the gear-driven tool, you can actually bring this in and you can tilt it and you can maintain pad rotation. And what I like about that is it enables me to buff out any shape of panel, any size, without stopping and switching to another tool that just has a smaller pad to fit that area. So it does take a little bit more practice and a little bit more time behind the tool to become proficient with the gear-driven tool. And also just a comment, so once you get this, I don't want you to have any regrets. This has what they call the walking effect or the pulling effect. And some people don't like that. But let me tell you what that is. What that is power, okay? So if you hold the tool completely flat, let me turn this down so it's kind of quiet. It's very easy to operate. If you tilt this, so if I tilt this to the left, I feel the tool pulling or walking away from me. If I tilt it to the right, because the pad's spinning that way, it's walking towards me. If I tilt it, it wants to go that way. If I bring the handle down, it wants to go to the left. So it has this walking effect, and here's what this is doing. It's talking to you and it's telling you, hey, you aren't holding the pad flat to the surface, adjust how you're holding the tool. Some people don't like that, but at least it's kind of self-teaching. It teaches you how it likes to be held, so then it does run smooth, so it doesn't tire you out. Anyway, so that's what that is. Now these other tools, they don't have that, because if you hold the polisher a little crooked, it just, the gear drive, the spindle in there just slips. The pad just slips. It doesn't spin, so it doesn't pull on you. So that pulling effect, while some people actually refer to that as something that's negative, what that really is an indicator of all the power that tool has. Anyway, these are what I consider the best entry-level tools under $200, coming from either respected companies or discount stores that do have they've developed a reputation for putting out a quality tool that'll hold up and has the performance to match some of the brand names here. If you like this video, please subscribe, tickle the little bell there so you get notified the next time we have a video coming out. And do look for my article called Beginner Polishers, the Best Beginner Polishers. And it has a lot more information in it than this video, but this video will get you started. Thank you for watching.